The Merchant of Venice within the context of human experience. Well, who hasn't had to pretend to be a lawyer to bail out your fool of a husband who borrowed money to impress you from a man who now wants to use the opportunity to kill your husband's former best friend / lover who never got over him? The extremity, even absurdity, of the plots in Shakespeare's plays shouldn't put you off. They're there to help you get the big picture idea of what the philosophical questions are being posed here. And in this case, for Merchant of Venice, it's questions about morality. The topic for the high school certificate is human experience. So you're meant to find ways that a play, even at such a distance, represents experiences that continue to occur in society. And in this case, what we're looking at is the eternal question of them and us. And in this case, it is absolutely intrinsically linked with questions of virtue and morality. So think about morality here. Think about what is acceptable within a moral framework, provided it is done by one of us instead of one of them. And that's where you're going to find the really interesting and clever stuff that Shakespeare did with Merchant of Venice coming up. Because what he did was he created a play that looks like it has a hero and looks like it has a villain. But when you look a bit closer, you see that their behaviours are mirrors of one another. They echo each other, and the only thing that's different about them is who performs the action. So have a look at the society around you now. What kind of behaviours will get one group of people expelled, cancelled, dismissed, incarcerated, that only result in further promotion and elevation if you're from another group of people? That's what we're looking at here. And so it's laid out very simply in The Merchant of Venice because Shylock is labelled the Jew. And because he is that thing, anything he does is assumed to be immoral, and anything done to him, no matter how immoral it is assumed to be acceptable. So is that a question of morality of behaviour, or is it a question of them versus us? The other them versus us, of course, in this play is women and men. We, at the beginning, find Portia completely under the control of her dead father's will. But her father has set up a classic philosophical question to arrange her life for her, and that is the choice between the three caskets. That's going to give you the other key entry point into what Shakespeare is doing with this play. It's a hint, it's an allegory for the fact that it is always going to be a mistake to judge from appearances rather than opening up the casket and looking at what is inside. That is a favourite theme of Shakespeare's. He always liked to deal with situations of seeming and appearance being unreliable or even immoral, and the need for the wise person to look deeper to understand true virtue or find the prize here being Portia. Now, don't forget that Portia is by far the biggest part in this play. It is so easy for this play to get hijacked by actors who are drawn to the role of Shylock, because he's a very powerful character, really holds the stage when he's on the stage, and has that incredibly famous speech that for many people is the only thing they know about the play, the "hath not a Jew eyes" speech that really gives the audience the opportunity to understand the key paradox being posed by Shakespeare here. The paradox that moral behaviour is very often attached much more to who performs the action than what is the action that is performed. So Shylock gives this amazing speech. The most important actor in the company always wants that role, and it's very super easy for that person also to trim Portia's lines. But she actually speaks nearly a quarter of the play, so do not lose track of the fact that this is her play. So what are the key questions for her then? She has to find a solution to her own problem, which is the hold that Antonio has and will continue to have forever if he dies, over her husband. And she does what every Shakespearean heroine does in that kind of situation and relies on her wits to get everyone out of the situation. But to do that, she has to do certain things that could be regarded as immoral. She has to disguise herself. She has to deceive people, including her husband, including the Doge of Venice. She has to pretend to be a lawyer, and she has to vanquish someone who it's assumed is an acceptable target, not wholly because of what he is doing here, but because of who he is. So that's Portia for you. But at the beginning, she sees a trail of suitors come through to see if they can win her. And she is very clear about what it is she wants to achieve from the position her father has put her in. She wants a husband that is suitable for her own choosing. But then she finds after she acquires Bassiano, she has several more tasks to fulfill, to perform before she can finally make that claim. But for her, the real question is that we can translate to us because of extrapolating this plot into wider questions of human experience that we all need to ask ourselves. Her question is, well, how much does your lover think you are worth? What about your friends? What do they think you're worth? What would they pay to get you back? What would they risk in order to secure you? And that's how Shakespeare's plays always work. They present you with an apparent extremity of plot, and that extremity lets you distill some really key questions that apply to all of us in our life as humans in a society, and ask ourselves what the answers are to those big questions. In this case, the questions are going to be, how do you know what you're worth to the people in your life? And what is virtue? Is it something that resides in an action, in a choice, or is it something that we allow to become almost wholly attached to whether or not we like the person performing the action? What we find in The Merchant of Venice is that Shylock's only flaw is to do literally and openly what everyone else in the play does covertly and metaphorically, and that is purchase people, buy and sell flesh. Decide what flesh you want, and then decide what you want to pay for it. And if you can't pay for it, then on your own head be it. So those are the big picture human experiences that you're going to encounter in this play. First of all, the question of when we judge something, are we judging the morality of the action, or are we judging whether the person performing the action is one of us or someone we regard as other, as excluded from our group? Then there's the question of how we establish the value of a person and how material or exacting are we prepared to be about that? What is the value of a wife or a husband or a daughter or a pound of flesh? And both those questions feed into this last human experience, which we all have to deal with, if not every day, then certainly any time we make a big or important decision for ourselves, which is, how do you know that you're choosing according to what is real, according to what is the fundamental substance of something, rather than being misled by appearances? So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to look more closely at the exact lines and moments where those questions are dealt with in the play.